Gen Z rising stylists and salon owners are struggling to communicate, seeing eye to eye, and moving forward with building teams and employment in the salon. Expectations are all over the place, but none of them seem to align. Today, I'm here with Kelly Gorsuch, a multi-shop owner, serial entrepreneur, and master stylist. And we're going to talk about what we can do and how we could do it to move forward on this problem. Welcome back to Hairdresser Strong Show. I'm your host, Robert Hughes, and today I'm here with Kelly. What's up, Kelly? How you doing?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, good. So for anybody who isn't familiar, Kelly and I had a conversation where we discussed the differences and expectations of stylists and salon owners and some of the challenges with communicating with the rising generation. I also put together a blog post and I discussed all the things that I've learned through conversations with Kelly and other people. And Kelly was like, let's jump on and let's talk about it. So I don't know, what do you want to start with first, Kelly?
Well, let me give you a little bit of a background on me so we can establish that I might be somewhat credible in this area. I've trained hairdressers at every level. When I was very young, I worked for a relatively cheap amount of money for haircuts, and I had my own trip. We didn't have a program, and I took somebody on and trained them when I was 19. And so that kind of started me on this path of training. And so that was at a very reasonably priced level. And then through the years, I've developed programs, and I actually developed for that company. They saw the benefit of that. And then I became the educational director of that company. And I was also training for brands at the time. And then basically I've done it. I've trained hairstylists at every level of the industry. So I think that's important because one thing we don't do very well in our industry is we don't separate the levels when we talk about it in conversation. We kind of do this plug and play talk about every level is the same or everybody's thought process is the same. And one of the things that I wanted to jump on, which I thought was like way too long of a conversation for us just in text, was to kind of break up the levels and talk about it from each level because it's so important. And that's why I wanted to give you a little bit of that preface of what my history is in the industry. So when we talk about it, you can understand that I've seen it from each level, and individually and in groups. And that's really because, like, my first apprentice, I paid for. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was 19 and I paid for them. The business didn't pay for them. They saw the value of it afterwards, and then they started paying them. So that's kind of my history on that. And so I wanted to break this down and talk about it from each level. So do you want to start off from the bottom or do you want to start off from the top?
Let's start from the top.
All right. So basically, the question at hand here is the expectations are too dissimilar from the owner perspective and the hairstylist perspective. And so we need to figure out, like, okay, because I know what the salon owners on each level want, and I know what I wanted as a hairdresser getting into this industry. Now, let's go, okay, if you're getting in and you wanted to get in from the beginning, what are your expectations? Like, if you wanted to, because you're more in touch, I would say, I mean, I'm in touch with them, but like, I don't go around to hair schools anymore. That's not something I've done in like 2 years now. And, like, what do you think that hairstylists who want to become premier level hairdressers, what do you think their wants are and their expectations of that?
Well, I think that the point, being able to stand up in front of the students and say, do you want to work at like a high-end salon versus a not high-end salon, or go into a suite, or I'll lay out all the different options and say, like, okay, by a show of hands, who wants to work here, who wants to work there? This is, where do you see yourself in within 0 to 1 years, 1 to 3 years, and 3 and after. And what I would say is that there isn't a lot of conversation about working at a high-end salon. It's more about It's more about like, I want to get out and I want to do hair. Like as a matter of fact, 50% of the day schools at Tyson's right now, Tyson's Corner, Paul Mitchell School, that after just going to them last week, they said that they would work in a salon and they would train like mainly up to 6 months, like if they had their ideal way. And when, you know, I've also get the impression that maybe they haven't really thought about it that much because maybe it wasn't put in front of them. So what I normally do is I say, okay, let's talk about price of haircut. And I lay out the theory that that if you made minimum wage for a year to 18 months, this is how much you'd make. And then, but then you'd become if you did it at a high-end salon after a year, 12 to 18 months, you would be charging, say, $100 a haircut versus going to work somewhere who will put you on the floor in 3 or less months, charging maybe $50 a haircut. Now, I know that's not an exact case, and I know that people are going to say, "Oh, well, I only did 3 months at a place to charge $80." It's more of like more of an exercise to ask yourself, like, how many places that have a high price point will allow you to come in and work with less than 6 months or more of training. And my answer is, based on the people I know, is zero. Like, unless they're desperate and they need somebody and they need to move them up, or they have like some people leave or something like that. I've seen people get pushed up quicker than they would have had everything in the salon been, you know, going well. But so I pose them with this idea, like, if you spend more time training at a higher price point salon, you'll end up making more money and jumping quicker, because to raise your prices from $50 to $100, there's incremental steps there. So it's like, kind of putting that in their perspective. When you put it like that, they all like, oh, well, then I guess I'd rather do my training for longer. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think there's just enough of these conversations, honestly.
Well, I think that's true. I mean, one of the big things I guess I kind of felt was hair school didn't matter which hair school you went to, and I've taught at a lot of them. And I went to a really good one, right? They almost fill you with this idea that if you went to a good hair school, that you could come out and you could be a great hairdresser right away. And that's something that you only know to not be true once you have experience, right? So when you're in school, you're going to sort of believe that because you want to believe it, right? And so how I always look at this is I try to go, no, let's go past the first stages and let's like reverse engineer the decision by like first telling me what type of hairdresser you want to end up as, right? Because it's really easy to go, well, no one's going to be like, yeah, I want to be a low end hairdresser. They're not going to say that. No one's going to be like, yeah, $40 is enough for me, right? Like, especially in a group setting, you know. Right. So first they have to like be honest with themselves, because let's just be honest, only a very small percent can make it up to the top level. So it's just not I mean, I kind of consider the top level to be like kind of 60 and up, and that may change a little bit with inflation here, just because it's happening so rapidly. I don't know. And so more of it is it's more about a mindset. It's like the top level is certainly, it's about a lifestyle choice, about being mostly guest focused, right? It's no longer you and about you, because there's no way to charge an incredible amount of money and the whole thing be about you. It really needs to become like a hospitality piece, and you're thinking about the people beside you, management, you know, and the guest with like the utmost respect. So first you have to figure out, is that something that I'm okay with, right? And then you start to go, well, what does it look like for the salon owner at that level? What kind of decision? Because here's the thing: it's like a big part of the ask are they don't have any experience, so they don't know what to ask for, right? And they just expect like their friends are doing well in like all of their careers, and they want to do well as fast as possible, and that's great. But you don't have to go to college in this industry, so you can cut out 3 years of the education right there. Which is incredible, right? And I can, you know, and like I make more than all of my friends that went to college. So it's not a game of money. You have to go past that and go, where do I want my career to be? at the end. And you start to ask yourself all of these hard questions. And from an owner perspective, how do you build a high-end salon if you're just putting any warm body on the floor?
Yeah.
And then how does that help you once you hit the floor in a high-end salon if the owner will stick any warm body on the floor? Right. And so a lot of times the ask is just far too much for the high-end salon owner. So what you really need to do is go, well, maybe the high-end salon is not for me. Maybe the middle end or the lowest end is the way to go. Like, I was an impatient student, and I actually I went to a really expensive salon out of hair school in Palm Beach, Florida. I took a job offer and moved down, and then I worked there for a couple months, and I just didn't like Florida. It was too hot. I sunburned too easy. I just didn't like it. So I moved back, and I was like gonna move to the West Coast. So I immediately just decided I'm just gonna go somewhere where I can do the most amount of hair possible without training. And so I went to like a really low end salon, and it's kind of embarrassing for me to talk about as the hairdresser I am now. But I went to a low end salon and I did a bunch of hair. And I'm telling you that I shouldn't have done that. And I can only say that with the humility of like where I'm at now is the hair I did looking back is embarrassing. I wasn't ready. School didn't teach. And I went, as you know, like I went to one of the best schools in the world. And like, it was embarrassing. The first client got taken out of my hands. I couldn't finish it. I didn't know how to do hair, and it's not like I'm some scrub. I was like the first person in like 15 years to get the like master's degree from Graham Webb. Right. And like, I was the like artistic team director. I was the vice president of the school. I was an ambitious I grew up in a family full of hairdressers, so I was ambitious. And that part of my career was the most embarrassing thing ever. And a big part of why I train so hard is that I never want anyone to feel that again. Right. Like no one can hit the floor. Because I almost quit the industry. And like, I didn't know if I wanted to do hair anyway. I was kind of just following my parents, right? So this was a really eye-opening experience for me. And then this is why I started to train, because I was like, I don't love that this happened. And that's been my motivation ever since is if I put someone on the floor at my salon, they can't have writer's block on the first couple clients. And to be honest, now I'm looking back at my career, that first 3 years was hell because I didn't know anything. And then I was surrounded by people who were also not very good. Right. And so I couldn't look at them and go, what is good? Because I didn't really know. And that's a big problem I see with kids getting going in this industry is you have all this information in this phone thing where you can learn just about anything, except for there's no way for you to tell what's good and what's not good. So you could be watching stuff that's not good, right? There's a big part of schooling and education in our industry that has nothing to do with behind the chair, especially behind the chair at the top level, because most of these guys don't do that because good hairdressers at the premier level, we would agree, don't really do this stuff because there's no money in it. Where there's so much money in behind the chair, why would you do that? Right? It just doesn't make any sense. So it's kind of the same way, like top hairdressers aren't always the ones who want to go out and do free work, right? Like, so it's a little bit tricky. So you have to sort of reverse engineer your career to like what your expectations are. So like, let's look at the person getting into the top level. You shouldn't want to be in a salon that doesn't have a training program at a top level. Because there's no way for them, they're like kind of susceptible to whatever they get. So it may be a very good salon one day, and then 3 years from now, not be a so great salon because they lost some of their better hairdressers. They weren't able to replenish with good hairdressers, right? The whole point of training programs are that you're constantly replacing people that are really good. And that's just through natural attrition. That's not like people leaving because they're angry or something. That's just natural attrition. People move. People leave the industry, what have you. So the whole point of training programs are to like replace for natural attrition with people who are trained up to do hair the way you want the voice of your business to be run. Right. So I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't own a salon if you don't have a voice, right? Like if you don't have a voice where you want to control the scenario, there's more money behind the chair and far less stress. So unless you have a need to like run the environment because you want it to run a certain way, it's just far easier to go be a hairdresser for someone else and make a ton of money. So that's like my first thing.
Well, in that, I think this is where you're kind of touching on one of the big issues that I understand from a salon owner's perspective, and you know, as a person that's, you know, hiring rising stylists myself to start training them, one of the big issues is there's a structural issue within the salon. If you're training if your support staff who you rely on to like do the shampoos and the cleaning and the laundry is moving through that position at a faster clip, then you as a hiring manager or salon owner need to be constantly hiring and constantly training, and you don't have your people at a lower end. Let's just say in a hypothetical scenario that you could upskill somebody to be on the floor within, say, 3 months. Let's just say a hypothetical scenario.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not saying we're doing it. I'm just saying hypothetically, if you could get someone on the floor in 3 months and you were happy with it, what would that do to your business model? Like you would never have any support staff, like, or it would be constantly like struggling to make sure there's support staff, which could impact the customer's experience. And then if you don't have enough chairs to move people at that clip, then without pushing people out or saying, hey, you're ready to be on the floor, but I don't have a chair for you. You know,
so
I think
that's solvable. Okay. So just let's touch on it just for a second. So, if you were able to do it at that kind of clip, one, it'd be so impressive that your business would explode, right? You would open
another
10
location, right?
You would open 10 in a city. So that's called forced growth. And with forced growth, you'll destroy, you'll kill everybody, right? Like it just depends on, is that what you want to do? Because the one thing that I know is that training programs, for me at my level, I can only put 1 out of 4 on the floor. So the other 3 go to other salons.
And do they leave you before that? Like,
no. I train them the whole way through. The second I know they're not going to work, the deal for me has always been, I will train you, okay, but I cannot guarantee you a chair on my floor.
Okay.
All right, and it's because I'm not going to just put people I trained on the floor just because they trained with me. They also have to have a good work ethic. The most important thing in a salon is that you get along with others. Okay, this gets lost. No one ever talks about it. It's the most important thing. If you can't get along with others, you can't be upscale. Or you can be upscale, but you'll make it miserable for everybody, and they'll make it miserable for you. So the number one thing is just to get along with others. So my thing is, it's like, look, the community wins because I train so hard, right? That's enough for me. It doesn't have to be about opening 18 salons. It just all I need to do is walk into my salon, and I don't need to be said I'm the best in the best bets. In fact, I don't ever want to be on those best lists because I don't want to be in the same conversation as the other people on the list. Right? Like, I don't want someone to look at that list and go, oh, they're all the same types of salons. They're in competition. I'm not in competition with them. They're not even in the same vicinity of the conversation as me. Right? So all I need to do is know that when I walk into my business as an upscale salon owner, that it is the best for me. Right? That I'm proud of the place that I've put together. That is not a money-making concept. And I don't think a lot of people are making their decisions entirely off of money from a business perspective. I think a lot of people just don't want to work with people they don't want to work with. And that's their voice that they're trying to control as a salon owner. And that honestly, it's their prerogative. So like, we don't have to, this is the thing. This is why this conversation is so important, is because we don't have to hire anybody. That's what everybody's like, look, if I don't like this generation, I'll just skip it and hire the next one. Do you know what I
So
mean?
what are you going to do about your support staff? You're just going to
I'll hire people to shampoo and clean.
Just do that, yeah.
This is what people don't understand is like, if I'm hiring people to shampoo and clean, well, that's less training people, right? And then also this brings, because I've done this, like at my last salon, against my will, we'll say, it's like I hired people who only shampooed and cleaned because people were pushing me to do it. I knew it was going to be a problem, because the problem is they get resentful because the apprentices' jobs are to learn. So they get resentful that these people are supposed to help them out are always on mannequin heads.
Right.
Okay. So then you create this crazy infighting. So it's everything's a give and take. You think you're solving a problem, and then you're creating a billion more problems. Right. And then those people who are shampooing and cleaning are not going to do it as well as the people who are apprenticing, because they don't care as much. They don't have as much skin in the game. How good you apprentice directly comes back to you as a stylist at the salon, because you'll get all of the money of you being a great apprentice created, right? Because you're basically lifting the level of the environment. And so you can charge more. My goal as an upscale owner is only to remove the bar in price. Like, it's not to be like, oh, we can charge up to 60, up to 70. No, my goal is to remove the bar all the way across the board, so everyone that comes up under me can win. They can stay there forever, and they can charge a lot of money. Like, one of the things we see in our industry is often the owner will be like, no one can charge more than me. Right. And you see this all the time, especially in the barbering industry, where they'll be like, the whole shop can only charge this price. Well, who wins that game? Who wins that game? That's a terrible business policy. So that's, if I'm an apprentice, I'm first looking at, okay, how important am I to the business? Right. Like, I have to understand that, like, it is important. Now, from an owner perspective, it's not about keeping them on the floor as long as possible. You actually do want them to go through the training, right? So then, and if I'm them, really what I'm going for is I want the best education possible. When I look back at my career and I skipped the apprenticeship that I wish I would have done now, right? If I could go back to the beginning, I would have found either the best apprenticeship program in my town and just called every one of them and asked, and then went and checked out anyone that had a program, and then seen, right? I would check out the best apprenticeship program in my town, or I would check out the best hairdressers in my town and beg them to apprentice for free. They will tip you. It's not like they're not going to tip you, and the clients will tip you, and like, you're going to make some money. But ultimately, you're getting a education that is far valuable than hair school, like far more valuable than hair school. Like, they can skip about 10 years of experience in 1 year, which is incredible. And no one gives enough credit to that, right? Because they're basically saving you millions over your career. And it's like, so do you want an extra 10 grand now, or would you rather make millions more over your career? You know, and that's a question that's easily answered, right, when you get it put in perspective. But no one's talking about that from the beginning. Everyone's like, oh, the only way to make money is to have your own business. And that's just not true. Like, if it was true, the salon suites and chairs, you'd hear how amazing it is and how it's crushing everything. And the data just doesn't support it, right? Like, pre-pandemic, they were leaving at 70% within 1 year. So that can't be true, right? And
they were leaving 70% what, from suites or the industry?
From suites.
Okay.
Right? 70% were gone inside of a year. Okay. Right? And that was pre-pandemic. I have no idea what it is now. But the one thing I know about real estate, because I'm a player in this game, is if I own real estate, which all suite rental is, because most of the guys who own it are real estate people, they're not hairdressers. Right? So if I own real estate and I have a list of 100 people trying to get into my suite rental, what do you think that's going to do to the price for that square footage?
Yeah, it's going to go up.
It's going to go up. So eventually, the more we go into this industry, the more expensive it's going to be, and they're going to swallow all the profit out of it. So you it was the Wild West for a few years, and now those years are gone.
Right.
They're gone because because real estate guys are smarter than our industry. They're gonna win. They're smarter than most industries. That's why they get into it. They're gonna win. So I don't love supporting an industry or like a piece of our industry that is almost entirely comprised of business landlords or like
Right. Yeah.
real estate guys, right? I don't love that because I want to get into this industry because I wanted to leave it better than where I found it. And that's what's most important to me because it's been very good to me. When I got into this industry, which was a very long time ago, there wasn't any money in it. Like there were higher end salons, but they weren't killing it. They were doing well.
Right.
It's a different game now, and like we created that. But this is I talk about this all the time. It's like this is the first time in my career where it's starting to go the other way, and it's somewhat sad to watch. But the flip side is I know everything's a pendulum and it will swing back. So it's just kind of how, because like, look, I have a big salon in Richmond and I have no problem getting apprentices, none, zero. I put out a thing 2 weeks ago. I had 4 before I posted trying to get the job. Because if you run a real training program, people's ears perk up. They know.
Are you apprenticing licensed stylists? Or are you apprenticing people from the ground up?
I do both. So I will take people who I honestly, because, and I don't mean this in a rude way, hair school is junk. It's just junk. It doesn't, it's necessary in a way because they can teach you to hold a blow dryer and they can teach you to hold scissors and you get used to that and you get a little used to working with hair. But honestly, they're not even teaching you how to section. Like it's so crazy. They'll tell you the sections. They don't show you how to section to where it can be as clean as humanly possible, how to hold a comb. Like everyone gets out and they're still scraping the teeth across the scalp, right? Like, and I don't mean that in a rude way because I think that it's a way to get into it, especially in areas where there are no training programs. But I'm just being bluntly honest about it. And I think schools suck. And I think that the best way you can empower this industry would be to get rid of licensure, because then you put all of the power back into salons' hands, and the ones who run good training programs would win. And that would only be in the best interest of the young stylists because they wouldn't be paid. You're paid to train, right? Like if you come into my salon and the first thing you say is like you're interviewing for me, and the first thing you say is, well, how much am I going to make? Right? Well, you're in the wrong place for that because I'm going to pay you. It's not going to be a lot. It's going to be enough for you to survive for 1 year. And then I'm going to pay you something that's incredibly invaluable. And that's a real chair-based education. I'm going to teach you how to do hair on real people and real haircuts and turn you into a hairdresser that you can be a monster for life, right? And you can change with the times, whatever, right? Like that, after that, it's kind of on you, right? Like I give you the tools. How valuable is that? That's worth more than any dollar amount. Like I would do that for free if I could go back. Right.
Okay.
Now,
So let's
even free, but I don't believe you should work for anyone for free. I'm not saying
right.
That.
Well, so let's say, let's just have another hypothetical. Let's say that these rising stylists come in and they're like, so this is something that they also said, because you kind of like hit on something that I'm remembering. They're saying if they said that the one, like, after having conversation and explaining the benefits of maybe apprenticing and a training for a longer period of time, and like it was more about like moving up in the price bracket than as opposed to like the value of that training. And I think that needs to be communicated. However, let's say hypothetically they said, okay, I'm down. I see the value. And if I come in, I do my training, and they said that they were less worried about training for a longer period of time than as long as they never felt like they were just a cog in a machine. Basically, how I interpret it was they want you to communicate with them regularly about their progress and constantly be aware of like what else they have to work on, where they're at. And so that was one thing, and the other thing,
Can you hold the second thought and let's
yeah,
address that.
okay,
I think that's valid.
yeah,
I
me
think that
too.
that's absolutely valid. The one thing I want people to understand is like it's in all of our best interests to be on the same team. It can't be us versus them. Like we all win if we're all on the same team. So all of this stuff needs to be like, can we do it together? But within reality, right? Like that's all I ask for as an owner. And and the thing here is like if I was an owner and I started up a training program and someone had to like work that training program, someone has to be paid. Yeah, that's a big expense on the business, and so is the training. Now, the problem is you don't become a good educator for the first 5 6 years, right? So you don't necessarily know what you're looking at for a very long time. That's not going to stop you from giving good information, right? So they're going to still be good, but they may not be at a level where they can look at you and go, this is where they're at, and this is where they need to go next, and this is where this is like their technique here, and I know it's going to be polished out to this. Like they don't exactly know what they're looking at, right? Like I can tell you how good someone is literally by how they grip the hair, right? And that took a lifetime. I mean, I've been training since I was 19. I'm 44, almost 45, right? So that's a lifetime of, and not just small training, right? Like I mean, I have 7 apprentices at my salon here, right? Like I'm constantly training to that clip, and to your point earlier, it needs to be trained on an individual basis. Like I have a rubric, I have like a system, but everything's individualized. But it's really hard to get there because you have to be a person that can look at people and go, this is where you are on the journey. And this is where I need to see you unlock with your own hairdressing before I can allow you to go on the floor. And it's that important for you that I'll do what's in your best interest, which is holding you back for a couple months to let you develop. Because if I
Okay.
put you on the floor, you might get hurt.
Okay, so on that is another thing that comes up, that like other people in the industry, influencers, and some salon owners that I've talked to, I've seen this idea of, if someone has a strength in one area, allowing them to take clients while they're still training in other areas. How do you feel about that?
Um, I see I see what we're talking about, but knowing what I know about this industry is it's not possible, right? Like you're not just going to be so far and away good at one thing that you could actually take clients on just that one thing, because you never know what's going to come through the door. And you never, like, you might have an idea of what someone's hair is, and then you shampoo them and you're like, it's a totally different texture.
Right.
The thing here is you're not going to be good at one piece without being good at all of it, right? Like that's just like hair is just hair. Your skills are what makes you good, right? So I guess if you were like, if maybe you're not strong at cutting and you do cut, I don't do this. I'm a compartmentalized salon and always have been. Maybe, maybe if you have a
Maybe
strength
they were
of
like
cutting.
really good with the clippers, for example. They can only do like clipper cuts, but they can't do anything else. And then that'd have to be a conversation at the front desk with the customer booking the appointment and be like, well, how short is your hair? It's
Yeah,
got to
well, I
be,
mean, you're putting a burden on the salon that like they don't want, like no one can actually achieve, right? So the most important cog, because we're all cogs in the machine, if you will. Um, Even me, right? I'm replaceable too. Um, the most important person in the entire salon is the receptionist. They are by far the most important person in the salon, because they need to be quality to make the business money. And so you can't make their life hell because you won't have good receptionists. Okay, so the more confusing you make it on them, the worse your business is going to be, because you're not going to be able to keep people who are good people and who want to do that job. If like everybody's coming up and shouting at them, if every single person has a billion different ways to charge and they have to memorize that, you're not going to keep good people long.
Okay, and then the other thought is, what if it's just a known thing that a lot of rising stylists, I mean, now this could change and not actually play out, but by kind of the conversations that I'm having and what I'm seeing on social media and like what the conversations are being had is that you might be somewhere for training and maybe building, but that doesn't necessarily, have to be the place that you stay. So then I hear like salon owners complaining, like, I train these people, I get them on the floor, or I train them and they don't want to, they're not quite ready. So they go somewhere else and they get on the floor, or they go onto the floor, they only stay for a little while and then they leave me. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Dude, it sucks. So, just imagine you invest. People are expensive, right? So no matter what, each person is at least going to cost you 40 grand a year. Every single person in your business is going to cost you, whether you're getting paid that or not. So if I have a trainee, I have to pay them. Then I have to pay the person over top of them. The more people I have, the more management I need. Right? The more people that are in the building, the more coffee they're drinking, the more snacks they're taking. When we order pizza, the more pizza they're eating, right? The more supplies they're using, right? It's more costly than you think to have a human being in your business, right? So think about it from an owner's perspective. If you come and like, I can train you all day long. It's going to take you 3 years to develop after I train you, right? Like you're going to be light years behind, like above everyone else, but it's still going to take you 2 or 3 years to develop into the hairdresser you're going to become, right? So imagine being an owner and everyone you're training is staying for the first 2 years of that, and you never get the great hairdresser, right? You're just building them and they're going all around your city, becoming your competition.
Right.
So imagine that as an owner. Right? Like think about how shitty that feels. And then understand why there's not a lot of training programs. Right? Because what's the incentive for the owner? Like everyone has to win in order for a deal to work. You can't, one side can't win the deal every single time and expect the deal to keep happening.
Right.
If the owner is the only person that wins and the hairdresser is not actually getting trained and you're just putting all these people on the floor through a supposed training program, right? And the owner is the only person winning. Eventually there's a walkout, right? Because they'll realize that they're losing the deal. So it's a very complicated scenario. Now, how do you fix that? That's not fixable. I don't believe it's fixable. So what someone wise once said to me is you do it for the people who stay, not for the people who leave. So in my opinion, you got to do it because the alternative is utterly foolish.
Well, the what I surmise from all these conversations is it makes basically that the cost of business is just going up. I mean, that's at the end of the day, you can adjust to the realities of the new generation, but that reality comes down to more money, more training, more.
Theoretically, the price should adjust too, but the problem is our industry is controlled by ego maniacs. So you have like a bunch of people in businesses who want to tell you what the prices should be, or they want to tell you what the cap on your prices should be, right? And honestly, you should let supply demand sort that out, because then you would go a longer way to staying in level with like inflation, right? And then that would theoretically keep up with your price increases.
So I guess the person that is most impacted, it seems, by all these changes and expectations, and the bar being kind of raised on like communication, structure of the education, and more hand holding, more time spent mentoring and like working with them, which I don't think is a tall ask, but that plus all of these other realities of people, like the trend in general with Gen Z is that they say, which is probably true, in order to get a raise, not necessarily in salons, but in order to get a raise, you work for somewhere for 2 to 3 years, then you move to another company, and that's how you get a better raise than staying within your company.
I would agree with that for most professions. Our profession, you like the salon isn't in control of your money, you are.
Right.
So to be honest with you, the best, most efficient way for you to make a lot of money is to stay in one location.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that environment has to be what you wanted it. This is why I'm saying you should go out and research and go walk in every salon you can, because you need to pick the salon based on the environment you want to stay at. And then it's kind of up to you to learn how to get along with people, right? I could walk into any environment. I don't care what it is. I'll get along with everybody. Like you're a hairdresser. You don't need to talk to anybody. I could sit in my chair with a book and never, or whatever electronic device you guys use these days. But I remember in my younger career, I worked in salons where I just didn't get along with the people, but I loved the salon. So I would just read a book in my chair. I never left my chair. I never walked into the back room. If you're getting into like arguments and fights, it's on you. It's your fault. It's not on the business. Like every time someone comes into an interview with me and they say something like, "Oh, my last salon got toxic," I immediately, it's a hard pass right then and there. The second you say that, it's a hard pass, because the building cannot get toxic. It can't. The business itself cannot get toxic. Only people can get toxic. And you're a part of that, or you're not a part of that. It's that simple.
Do you have many rising stylists come in and say, I went to this one salon and they said they trained me, and I was there for 3 months and they didn't give me any classes, any training, and said that I still got another 6 months to go, but they told me I'd be done in 6 months and I've already been here 3 or 4 months? Do you get many of those people coming in?
Yeah, that's a problem. Bro, that's a huge problem. Like,
that's a huge problem.
And this is where they're right? It's like so many salons tell you they have training programs and you go in and there's no training. Or there's training, but it's so sporadic, right? Like at my salon, we train in class once a week, every single week. And then their job is to then work on mannequins. Now, here's how crazy this is. So the ones who do really well will work on the mannequins during the week as much as they possibly can. There's no downtime. There's no sitting in the back, right? The ones who won't make it at my salons are the ones who will just sit in the back. And they know this because I will tell them and they'll still do it. Right? So a little bit of it is on them. A lot of this is on salons. You're saying you have training programs or you're willing to take on an apprentice. No one's in charge of it. You're trying to do it as a group. That doesn't work. You have to like put a single stylist. And a lot of times it's your youngest, most ambitious stylist you should be putting into that role. And then grooming both of them, like trying to build out both of them at the same time. So you need to be trying to get them skilled up with their training as much as the person who they're actually training. And then you need to be able to learn how to manage that. Or as a salon owner, maybe you have the skills you need to be able to. I can't color, so I always have to have a color. I can color. I'm not good at it. I haven't done it in 25 years. But I know enough to know what I'm looking at. But like basically I have to have someone training the color at all times. And it's a little different. Color is a different game, right? Color is so much experience as opposed to training. You have to see color and see a lot of shapes and stuff colored. And you can't make up for experience. Whereas cutting, I can skip experience with good material. And then understanding that. So in my salons, we have a cutting director and then we have a color director. And then basically people help out with that. But those two people are in charge because you need to have one place where the buck stops, and they're responsible for the kids, and they got to want to do it. And it can't be money based, because the second you pay somebody for it, it's over. It's over. Like anytime you monetize your hobby, it's no longer a hobby and you don't enjoy doing it. As simple as that. Um,
So what are you saying though? You can't pay who?
I don't think you can pay education. I think education has to be its own reward. If you want to be a top flight hairstylist in this industry, you have to teach. That's the only way for you to learn. And the money that comes from that is incredible. It's a windfall, but it can't come from the salon, because the second you get paid for it, you'll turn it into a job and you won't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can.
Every time I've ever paid somebody for it, they're done within a month or two. I mean, I'm a person who works every day except for Sunday, and always have and always will. Um, and and you have to understand what you're trying to get out of it, and like where you want to go, and be able to reverse engineer your career, because it's so important. If you want to be mid-level, think about the money now. If you want to be high end, you got to think about the money later.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it isn't hard to either stay with your parents, couch surf for a year, like whatever you got to do. All these guys talk about how much money they need to survive. They're all ordering in every single day for lunch, paying, like, I mean, literally, you see like the delivery start here is insane, right?
Yeah.
No one's making their own lunch. No one's stopping themselves from going out drinking every night, right? Like
Right.
it's only 1 year of your life.
Right.
In order to like crush for the rest of it, you could just work your tail off that year and not do anything else. But that's a really hard ask to ask out of someone that's 19 or 20.
Yeah, I think the at the age, if you haven't been groomed to expect to apprentice under somebody, and you're experiencing the industry through your screen because you haven't really even stepped foot in a salon other than the one you've gotten your hair at, you're going to assume that, there's the only barrier into entry, which it is the only barrier to entry, is the license. And however, there's like the
Is it?
conversation.
It's pretty easy to work without a license in this industry.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if that's really an actual barrier as opposed to like a mental barrier.
yeah. I think I don't know, just to say that, just to assume that people are going to not want to operate without a license, like that would be if that's the case, that's the only thing standing in their way. And I think that's what the thought process is in the head, is all I got to do is get my license. And I talk to the teachers at these schools, and they tell me that they tell their kids all the time that they're going to need to train. But I say, then why do you think they don't listen? And they say, because they don't want to hear it, but they'll listen to somebody who comes in as a guest speaker more than they're going to listen to their teacher, which I can totally understand that as well. So I don't know.
Yeah,
This
I
whole.
stopped I mean, this is the reason I stopped going into schools, is because I got so frustrated with, I would walk into schools and everybody was listening and everybody was hanging on to every word. And then all of a sudden there was this shift, and I'd go in and people would be sleeping and like they weren't listening anymore. And it's like, dude, it's a lot to be able to go in and tell somebody the honest truth, right? Like, it's not easy for me to get on here and talk honestly, because the problem in our industry is if you're not a constant positive mental attitude, people just assume you're not a nice person, or you're not worth listening to. And it's like, no, having these hard discussions is the most important, because then we as a industry can move on and get better, right? Like, you
Right.
can't just go, oh, it's all the students. It's not all the students. Oh, it's all the salon owners. It's not all the salon owners. It's a combination. We're all in this place that's like, in order to do what's best for people, we all have to lose a little bit and we all have to win a little bit. And it's a tricky spot situation to be in for all of us. I think students have this is the problem of youth. This isn't hair school, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you start to go, well, all my friends are doing this thing and I have FOMO and like I want to do it, right? And it's like, no, all you have to do is just wait 1 year. If I came to you and I said, go get the best training program possible, and they're going to pay, right? You're going to make money. You're not going to make a lot of money. You're going to get paid, and you're going to get paid there's this imaginary wealth coming to you, right? Like, that you're not giving enough weight to, because they're going to make you money that you can't believe. And they're going to, like, good training programs and good hairdressers are going to remove the bar for you to how much you can make money, because they're going to teach you everything: how to run a chair, how to like act in the salon, what professionalism is, like how to actually do hair that's geared towards the client and not towards hair school, right? It's very different hair. It's very like I trained for Graham Webb, Tony and Guy, Russ, Bumble and Bumble. The hair I do has nothing to do with any of that. It's a combination of all of it, right? Like, and it's mostly based on my own eye, and it's not a brand. Hairdressing is not a brand. And people really struggle with that in hair school because you feel like you're paying to become a brand. And like I'm paying to become an Aveda stylist, or I'm paying to become one of these stylists, and that's just not true. You're paying to like get your foot going in the industry and get in. I'm with them. I think school is kind of a waste of money. I don't mean to be rude when I say that. I feel like if we could skip schools, this would solve a big problem in our industry, because you'd put the power back into the salon's hands, and they would be forced to do better programs,
right,
because they would need to train people to get them on the floor.
And they'd have to compete.
Schools are closing. This is really becoming apparent.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, the competition would go up so much.
I mean, tremendously. Like right now, there's no competition. I can have 7, and I just hire people. If you come in and I think you're amazing, I hire you. I don't care if I need you, because I may not get that opportunity 6 months from now when the busy season hits, and I'm like, I was geared up for war, but I dropped 3 people on the floor in October. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Then I might be like struggling in the busiest time of year to try to find somebody to replace. And then I'll hire anybody, which is never a position I want to be in as a salon owner. So I think a big part of this is kind of on everyone, but mostly it's on the people who are coming out, because what you seek out is what the industry will adapt to. But
right. Totally.
If you're just making stuff up about what you want, and you don't really have any experience in what the ask is, right? Because this is the trouble. It's like, if you just ask for a bunch of like pot at the end of the rainbow stuff, you're never going to get that. But if you ask for the next step in your journey, right, like then it will happen, because you can't skip that. Or like the easiest way to become great at anything is just take the very smallest, simplest step next.
Well, I mean, I think this was a great conversation, and it ran way longer than I thought it would, but
it ran exactly how long I thought it would.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think this is great. I look forward to continuing this conversation, maybe coming up with other kind of solutions, or entertaining, kind of talking about other people's ideas for solutions in the future, and then kind of breaking those down and dissecting them. But do you have any like last words before we sign off?
No, I think that was important, and really looking at these, because it's really easy for you to bring someone like me on, and I'll spurt exactly what I'm doing. But what you have to understand is like that can't apply to every level. Right. And it can't be the same for every level. And then it can't be the same for every human. So there's general things I do, but everything can pivot if necessary. And that becomes somewhat of a big ask for most salon owners. But we have to be able as an industry to break these things down into 3 levels and then talk about them differently for each level. Because if I was a student coming into the bottom level, well, shit, man, I don't want to do anything. I could probably almost step into it right away and be decent, right? Like without any school. Not decent, but like I would figure it out in a couple of weeks with the amount of information online. And there's nothing more to push you than to do a bad haircut or two. Like that makes you then wake up and go, what education do I need? And then if you're attacking that middle, you need to understand that it's a little education, but not a lot. And then like, let's get you on the floor pretty fast. But at the top level, the ask can't be to go on the floor. It's got to be, you got to train. And honestly, it's in your best interest. And that needs to be something that people understand is no one's trying to hurt you. They're trying to help you. And like, you have to let them help you. A big part of success is getting out of your own way. That I'm a firm believer that that's the last step to success, is you have to get out of your own way, because your ego will do things to you that will cost you millions. Like, I'm not like, no joke, millions. The difference between getting trained up by somebody who teaches you all the to be good for the life of your career, but also teaches you finances at the beginning and gets you to understand the S&P 500 and other things. That's stuff that is absolutely invaluable, because if I get you to invest in your 20s, you're talking about millions on retirement just from your 20s, right? So if I can get you on that path quicker, understand that it's for your best interest, and that like you're going to make a happier employee in the business, because you're going to be a good part of the machine, not one that's draining the resources of the village.
Right. Well, this is good, man. I look forward to talking more, and thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about this. I feel like this is one of the biggest topics of our industry right now, of our time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. This is a hard conversation to have. I'm glad that you were willing to do it. And we can do it in a way that, like, you know, we're just being honest and sharing information, and hopefully it's helpful. I mean, I think if I was a young stylist, I would want to hear this instead of like the opposite, which is what I heard, which was, oh, you're going to be able to be a badass hairdresser day one out of hair school, which was categorically false.
Yeah. I hope so too.
Honesty is the best customer service.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope that all any rising stylists out there listen to this, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Maybe even let's get one of you on the show and let's have this conversation. Maybe we could even do like a round table kind of talk about it as well. So until then, I have a good day, and thanks for coming on the show again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.